Good morning, students. So today I'm going to teach you how to prepare a table of specification or the TOS. So we know in your uploaded module that your TOS is your guide on determining how many test items you are going to include based on the topics that you have finished discussing with your students. So before you proceed to the TOS, you must try to summarize first what are the topics that you are going to include, especially all the topics that you have discussed. So you must try to prepare also the number of teaching hours you spent in discussing each chapter and the total number of hours you have finished discussing all the chapters that you are going to include. And also, you must try also to plan out how many test items you must include in your test. So, I'm going to share it to you what I have prepared, TOS, for my Math 101 in college algebra and advanced algebra rather, on how did I prepare my table of specification. So the very first thing that you must try to do, you must try to prepare first for a table. So your table, we know pretty well that your table must consist of columns and rows. If we are going to prepare a two-way grid TOS, so you try to refer to your module, we must try to prepare 11 columns. And the number of rows will depend upon how many topics or how many chapters you are going to include. So on the number of chapters that you have finished, you must try only to add 2 rows, one for the heading and another one for your total. So in my Math 101, I have finished 5 chapters. So that means I'm going to prepare a table with 11 columns and 7 rows. So your table of specification will look like this. You must try to provide a wider area for your topic, and then you have there your table, your columns rather. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So I'm going to prepare a two-way grid TOS. So 11 columns wherein each of the column is being named as the first column will be your topics. The second column will be the number of teaching hours. The second column will be the percentage of the teaching hours. The 6 of the columns will be the 6 levels of the cognitive domain. To start with, remembering, understanding, applying, analyzing, evaluating, creating. The last 2 columns will be the number of test items, and the last will be the percentage of the test items. So this will be now your 11 columns. As what I have told you, I have finished 5 chapters for Math 101. So 5 chapters, I'm going to add only 2 rows for my heading and another row here under the table for your total. So you have there, so you have there 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then 1 column for my total. Okay. So these topics, in this first column, you must try to list down the chapters that you are including in your test or that you have finished discussing with your students. So in Math 101, I have finished about sets, about working with polynomials, okay, and then the third chapter I have finished real number system, or this includes the properties of real numbers. The fourth will be factoring, chapter is on algebraic fractions. So I have finished 5 chapters. That is why I have included these 5 chapters in their midterm. And the last row will be your total. So after writing all the topics, you know already the different objectives of this topic. You know what you are going to measure on the stock knowledge or the knowledge of your students in your midterm examination. So do not include topics that you think you did not discuss with your students. So after writing all the topics, you know pretty well how many hours each topic was discussed in your students or in your class. For example, I take 6 hours in discussing chapter 1. I take 3 hours in discussing real number system. I take 9 hours in working with polynomials because we learned there how to add, subtract, multiply, divide, and finding the special product. So 9 hours. In factoring, I have spent 6 hours, and the algebraic fraction, I spent 6 hours. So you try to total or sum up the number of teaching hours for each 5 chapters. So 15, 18, 24, a total of 30 hours, teaching hours. After that, the very first thing that you are going to do, you decide how many test items shall I give in my Math 101 class. So it is very important in creating or in preparing your TOS. So you must try to plan. So in my Math 101, I try to give 50 item test. You cannot be able to have successfully made this TOS if you do not decide or do not plan how many test items shall you include in your test. After that, you try to determine now, after getting your number of hours for each chapter, getting the total number of teaching hours for these chapters, and after deciding how many test items shall we include, we can be able now to solve for the number of test items in each of the chapters. So it is very important that each of the chapters here must be represented in your test. So you know already it is very difficult that you have studied everything and then at the last it did not came out in your test. So that is the purpose of the TOS. Each of the topics here must be represented. So how do we solve for the number of test items? So the formula in determining the number of test items is that you must try to divide the teaching hours, the number of teaching hours divided by the total teaching hours times how many test items shall you include in your test, which is 50. So substitute each given to each of the chapters. For example, in chapter 1 sets, I have discussed this for 6 hours. 6 over 30 times 50. So all in all, mahimo siya nga items diri is 10. Kay 6 divided by 30 is 0.2 times 50. So sa ato at sets, mahatag ako sa 10 items. And then, kung may mga 6 na kamo diri, nga 6 hours in teaching sa inyong mga chapters, understood na nga 10 man na ka-items, ang ihatag nyo sa sininga topic. After that, mag-move ka sa 9. So, substitute 9 divided by 30 times 50. So, 9 divided by 30 is equal to 15. So that means the greater the number of teaching hours you spent in discussing the topic, the more items you should include in your test. So you have there 15. Then 3. So expect kita kung 3 hours lang, mas less than sa 10, mas less than sa 15. Kaya 3 hours lang siya i-discuss. So you have there 3 divided by 30 times 50, a total of, you have 5 only. So sa sets or sa real number system, 5 items lang dapat ang na-include sa sininga chapter. So you sum up now. You try to check whether your test items will be equal to total of 50. You add. So 10, 15, 25, 30, 40, 50. So may equal na siya. And then your number, after getting your number of test items, you try to solve now the percentage of your teaching hours. So in solving for the percentage of teaching hours, you simply divide the teaching hours divided by the total teaching hours times 100%. Okay, for example, in chapter 1 sa sets, you spent 6 hours in discussing the topic divided by the total number of hours, which is 30, times 100. So the answer will be 20%. Kaya ang 6 divided by 30 cannot be 0.2. So 0.02 times 100%, just move 2 places. The answer is 20%. So for chapter 1, the percentage of teaching hours is 20%. So, na siya, same man na isa may mga 6, 20%. You solve now for your 9. So you have there 9 teaching hours divided by 30, which is total teaching hours, times 100%. So this will become now 0.3 times 100, a total of 30%. So your 9 here is 30%, and your 3. So 3, 30 divided by 30 times 100% is equal to 0.1 times 100 equals 10%. So 10. And then you check kung ma-equal siya sa 100. So 20 plus 30, 50, 60, 80, 100%. After that, you try to solve now the percentage of the test items. The process will be the same also as you have solved the percentage of teaching hours. So the percentage of the test item is number of test item divided by total test item. So if your test item is 10 divided by the total, which is 50 times, this will be times mo 100. Okay, percentage means 100 times 100%. So if you are going to divide 10 by 50, the answer will be 10 divided by 50, that is 0.2, which is also 20%. So tanan diri nga may 10, 20%, diri 20%. So if you answer, if your number of item is 15, so you have there 15 divided by 50 times 100%. So i-divide mo ang 15 by 50, that will be 3.3 times mo 100%, the answer is 30%. And then kung 5, you have there 5 divided by 50 times 100%, this will be 0.1 times 100%, which is equal to 10%. Then you check kung may equal siya sa 100%. So 50, 60, 80, 100%. Okay, so very good. We have come up with the correct summation. And after you have computed all of this, your problem now, or your next step now, is to determine these items if where level these test items belong. So for example, sa 10 items, since we are having a mathematics subject, more kita sa solving. Pero may part na multiple choice wherein we can be able to classify our test items into remembering, understanding, applying, analyzing, evaluating, and creating. Okay, how do you know that your test item is remembering? So makita class nyo remembering, it is just a simple recall. For example, my test item is, what is an algebraic expression consisting of 3 terms? So you just simply recall and remember what is that term. So that is what you call as remembering. When we say understanding, for example, if I have 2x plus 3y is an example of what expression? Although that we try to define that it is a binomial, but I was not able to directly use and recall the definition of a binomial. So that is what we call as understanding. When we say applying, the example of my test item there is find the sum of 2x plus 5y, find the difference of 3x squared minus 5x plus y, and negative 2x squared minus 7y plus 6. So there is a need for you to perform the operation. That is applying. When we say naman analyzing, when I have, which do you think is the statement that best describes a polynomial? So you try to analyze each of the statement so you can be able to answer the question. That is more on analyzing. And evaluating, and then you have there evaluating. You try to evaluate what will be the value of a something that make the sentence or the equation true. Or what do you think is the value of x so that the equation will be a true equation or a true statement? That is evaluation. And when we say creating, you try to create the 2 given factors that the product will be equal to this. So that is what you call creating. You are giving, you are designing, you are inventing. And what we are doing now, preparing a table of specification, is an example of a creating level. So I hope students, you'll really gain a lot on this little video of mine on how to prepare a table of specification. As a summary, you must first try to have 11 columns for a two-way grid TOS. You must try to determine how many chapters or topics you are going to include. You just add 2 rows for your heading and for your total. And then after that, decide or remember how many hours did you discuss each of the topics. And do not forget to get the total number of teaching hours. And after that, you must try to decide on how many items shall you include in your test so you can be able to determine the number of test items. So what I have test, the number of test items is equal to the teaching hours divided by total number of teaching hours times the number of items that you decide to include. And the percentage of teaching hours is equal to the teaching hour divided by the total number of teaching hours times 100. And the percentage of teaching test items is equal also to the number of test items divided by the total number of test items times 100. So if your computation there are correct, all in all, the values will be equal to your total. So for example here, if I have here a 10, I am include 2 remembering, 2 understanding, 5 application or applying, and 1 analyzing. If I have here 3, 4, 4, 2, 2, a total of 15. So there 2 plus 2, 5, 1, 10. So 7, 11, 2 plus 2, 15. And then sa 5, if I have here 2, 1, 2, 5. And then, kay more kita sa solving, this will be, for example, 8, 1, 1. So here, if I have here 7, 1, 1, 1. So, there is a need for you to determine that each of the levels, the sum will be equal to the number of test items. So 2 plus 2 plus 5 plus 1 is 10. So we have 7, 11, 15, 7, 14. This will be 15, 5, 8, 12, 1. A total of 15. So kinahanglan ma-equal gid ni class ang inyong sum level sa inyong test items. So kung 10, 8 plus, very good. After that, you try to add each of the levels. So 2 plus 3, 7, 8, 9. Then 8, 9, 10. 11, 19, 26, 4, 1. And then you sum up if horizontally, if it is equal to 50 items. So 9 ka remembering, 10 ka understanding, 26 sa applying, 4 for analyzing, and 1 for evaluating. So 9 plus 10, 19 plus 26 is 45 plus 4, 49 plus 1, 50. So your test item will be equal to 50 if you have distributed your test items to each levels of your cognitive domain. So, thank you very much for your time. I hope that it will greatly help you understand about TOS, and you can start filling up or preparing your TOS in your enrichment activities. By the way, I have given you there in your enrichment activities the sample of TOS. All you need is to fill out the teaching, the percentage of teaching hours, the number of test items, and the percentage of teaching of test items rather. And then I have required you to give 5 items for each kind of test items. You do the same. You try to use this TOS. So, what will be included and what will be used in constructing your test items? All your uploaded modules from 1 to 10, you just select there the test items that you can be able to apply to the different kinds of tests, and you prepare also a TOS like this. This will be your last requirement for the midterm exam. So you simply use the uploaded modules. So I know that you already know how to prepare those kinds of tests. So 5 items in each of the different kinds of tests. Thank you very much, students. God bless and stay safe, everyone.